Great, thank you. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us on this 26th National Cystic Fibrosis Summit. I'm David Suhu, and I'm the Director of Programs and Operations at CFRI. I've been with CFRI for the past 12 years, and I recognize many of you who have been attending our conferences, and it'd be kind of nice to meet new attendees as well. It's my pleasure to welcome to you, all of you, to this evening. What could be better to start things off than to thank Daryl Batchelor and the Birds of Cats. And thanks to all of you for setting the tone for this evening. That is fabulous. Our first conference began in 1987 with a huge attendance of 33. And it's held for one day. Today we have 2.5 days of programming, and our outreach is nationwide. This year's conference theme, Getting in Tune with CF Today. The latest research and best practices. It's reflected everywhere from the centerpieces to the Blue Room, Hospitality Suite, and the veranda. There you will find other nonprofit groups, and you can look over some of the wonderful silent auction prizes. On your way into the ballroom this evening, you pass by our sponsors' exhibit tables. Exhibitors are here to share the latest in products and services for people with CF and their families. Ask them about their financial assistance programs. Try their equipment out. This is a unique opportunity for you to learn more about how to help yourself and your loved one with CF. And thank them for their generous support and sponsorship, which makes this conference possible. You all know that CFRI is committed to creating a safe environment for all possible. Our newly revised infection control policy and hygiene guidelines are essential to the well-being and safety of all our attendees, whether or not you have CF. Your adherence to these guidelines directly reduces the risk of cross-infection for attendees with CF and gives us the rare opportunity to continue to gather as a community. Here to share our hygiene guidelines with you tonight is our medical advisor, Darnell Zimmerman. Darnell is an RN who resides in Alameda, California with her husband of 40 years, Christian. She has a daughter and a son. Her son, who was diagnosed with CF at the age of 22 months, is now 25 years old. He is healthy, physically active, and works full-time. Darnell graduated from University of California School of Nursing. She works as a registered nurse specializing in geriatric care. She also serves in our conference committee. Darnell is only available in routine problems during the conference hours. If you have any medical emergency or medical problems before or after hours, call 911. So please help me welcome Darnell.
Hello and good evening. You might want to pull this book out of your carrier, so we're going to refer to it. Cross-infection is a term used in the medical community to describe the risk of passing a bacteria or virus from one person with CF to another. CFRI's hygiene guidelines were revised and updated earlier this year to further reduce the risk of cross-infection. Please make careful note of these guidelines, which are on page 4 of the conference brochure. There are a couple of items I would like to emphasize. Check the number 4 bullet down the page. Upon registration, you were given a hygiene kit. Please make use of what is contained in there. Everyone should use the gels often, not just people with CF. Hand sanitizers and Kleenex are strategically located throughout the conference area. We have extra hygiene kits N95 mask and gloves at the CFRI registration desk for anyone who needs more. Bullet 5 states that hotel personnel will serve meals to all people with CF. You may serve yourself if you do not have CF. If you have CF, please refrain from touching serving utensils or beverage dispensers. You may instead ask hotel personnel or a volunteer without CF to serve you as needed. We also encourage volunteers without CF to be the point of contact for opening doors and turning on lights. When you meet someone new, do not feel the need to shake hands. Instead, acknowledge introductions with bumps of the elbow or polite bows or crossing of arms. Also, do not share pens or utensils. Each attendee was given a special pen upon registration. For cross-infection purposes, we ask that you only use your pen throughout the conference. Everyone with CF has a blue dot on their badge. We are emphasizing that you follow the 3-foot rule, which means to stay at least 3 feet away from other people with CF. This minimizes the chance that aerosol particles will travel from one person with CF to another. When you take a seat in any room, alternate CF, non-CF. For the safety of all attendees, please comply with these guidelines. If you have any medical questions about CF, hygiene guidelines, cross-infection, or have a medical problem, don't hesitate to seek me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Darnell, for reviewing our hygiene guidelines. We are now officially beginning our evening's activities. Tonight, we are pleased to have returning as MCs Darnell and Darlene Batchelder, a husband and wife team and long-term supporters of CFRI. Please help me welcome Darlene and also Daryl Batchelder.
We both perform in community theater, and I'm just relieved that we don't have to memorize all of this.
Well, good evening. I am Daryl, and this is Darlene. We welcome you to CFRI's 26th National Cystic Fibrosis Family Education Conference. We're honored that CFRI has asked us to serve again as your MCs. Darlene and I were perhaps at the the second or third conference, and we would not have dared to ask for a nurse that had geriatric training back then. And it's amazing where we've come in the last 26 years.
So Daryl and I are the proud parents of a son who is 25 years old. He was diagnosed when he was a year old, a son with cystic fibrosis. His name is Joseph. He works full-time. He's a chef at Google, and he's been working there for going on 6 years now, so we're really proud of him that he's staying healthy and able to work full-time.
We think he's eating well.
We also have a son, Richard, who's 27, who does not have CF. And also, I think the other thing that I want to say is we have been involved with CFRI for a long time. When Joe was diagnosed at Stanford at the old Packard Children's Hospital, one of the first things the doctor said to us is, you need to talk to Ann Robinson at CFRI. And we've been talking to Ann Robinson at CFRI for 25 years. So thank you, Ann.
So we're going to do a quick run-through of the ground rules, so please bear with us. First, the conference is being videotaped. Everyone signed a photo-video release at the registration desk. This release allows us to videotape our educational activities for DVDs, newsletters, and public relations. If you would prefer not to be taped, please sit in the back.
Way back.
Our thanks to the generosity and service of CFRI's AV committee volunteers, Scott Wakefield, Randy Evans, Eric Martin, and Craig Burley, who's our still photographer. Craig is still our photographer. Our thanks also to Swank Audiovisuals here at Sofitel. On Sunday, 2 of our sessions will stream live online. The registration desk will have more information about the live streaming.
Your conference brochure is your guide to the weekend. Of particular note is a CF glossary starting on page 36. This should be of value particularly to conference newcomers as it contains many CF technical terms. And those of us who've been around a while know there are a lot of CF technical terms. You're required to wear your name badge. Your name badge allows you to enter the conference, all the lectures, meetings, and meals. As you know, those with CF have a blue dot on their badge, which lets people know that you have participated in the medical screening process and have been cleared to attend. All newcomers to the conference have a blue bubble with a musical note that reads, "I am new," on their name tags. So please warmly welcome all the newcomers, because I know what it was like to be a newcomer to a conference. So it would be wonderful if you introduce yourself to them.
Please visit our sponsor booths over the weekend. I don't know how many of you folks have been in sales, but staffing a booth, if you're not getting any traffic, isn't any fun. And these folks have come a long way. They've put a lot into our conference. And this is one place where you can actually go. They're coming to you. So you have an opportunity to really get down, meet people, have your questions answered. And that's pretty rare. So please visit your booths and thank them for their kind generosity and for making the trip out here to support us. Each year we provide an inspirational, uplifting gallery and meeting place in the Sofitel's Veranda Room, and that's just the other side of the registration desk. This year the hospitality suite is called the Blue Note. You'll find the silent auction and raffle prizes there, as well as nonprofit organizations' exhibits. It's a great place to relax and refresh.
And now for the really fun stuff. Lost and Found is located at the registration desk. If you're like me, you'll probably be there several times this weekend. As a reminder, please write your name on the tote bags, because they all look alike. So if you don't put your name on that tote bag, could end up in New York, I don't know. CEUs, continuing education units, we have a lot of medical people here. Those are being made available for healthcare providers, and forms are also available for CEUs at the registration desk. Color-coded evaluations. These are really, really important. The quality of every year's conference depends upon your feedback. So tonight's evaluation is purple. Maybe lavender, but purple. And so you can place the completed evaluation in the box as you exit the doors there. There's a box for evaluation, so please take just a little bit of time that it takes to fill that out and drop that off. You can drop it off anytime. If you fill it out and forget to drop it off tonight, you can drop it off tomorrow, or you can drop it off Sunday. The goldenrod color-coded evaluation form is to be completed at the end of the conference, okay? And that provides CFRI with really important information and measurements to use in our grant funding efforts. Your feedback has an enormous impact on how and what we plan for the next years to come. So please, again, fill these forms out.
You may have heard this before at past conferences. Our enduring rule: there are no questions that you cannot ask.
No rules. There are lots of
All
rules.
questions and inquiries are welcome. Remember that we all have varying degrees of CF knowledge. If you are a newcomer or young to CF, please know that no question is too simple. We request that when asking a question or making a comment, you speak clearly into the microphone, which will be located in the center of the room for most of the conference. A volunteer who does not have CF will hand the microphone to you and clean it between uses. Thank you for your patience. We ask that you take a moment to turn your cell phones and pagers off or into silent vibrate mode. I better do that too. Finally, the back 2 pages of your brochure are for note-taking, and you will find pads on the table for your use as well. Handouts, PowerPoints will be available after the conference on our website for you to revisit the presentations. We will now begin our main program of the evening.
Our first speaker is a CF ambassador for the Boomer Esiason Foundation of New York, leading the foundation's scholarship and grant division. He has lived with CF for 57 years. Got it? Okay. has completed 2 New York City marathons. Get my notes straight here. Has competed at the national level in pole vaulting. He has also, that's not easy. He has also written an autobiography and a children's book entitled Jerry, the Boy Who Could Not Fail. He is a huge source of inspiration to the Cystic Fibrosis Committee, and he is here to talk about successfully hitting the high note with CF. Before Jerry joins us up here, we wanted to share a special video called Courage in Sports that was aired nationally on CBS last fall. This was the 23rd year of this feature, and Jerry was chosen out of thousands of candidates as having one of the most courageous life's stories. So please enjoy the video.
A peaceful haven, tucked beneath the rigors of New York City, lies Rockaway Beach, an unassuming refuge from the demands and the intensity of everyday life. But for some, this sanctuary means coming home, blissful skies, pure air, and an implausible freedom to breathe. For 56-year-old Jerry Cahill, running amidst the shore here symbolizes his story, his past, present, and future. One where defying the odds has never been more extraordinary.
I was sick pretty much my whole life until they discovered I had cystic fibrosis at age 10. The doctors told my parents, you're lucky if your son makes it till his 16th birthday.
Cystic fibrosis is a fatal and chronic respiratory condition causing a thick buildup of mucus in the lungs. Ultimately a death sentence for Brooklyn-born Jerry Cahill.
I had a lot of colds, I had pneumonia, breathing becomes a major difficulty. My mom initially wanted to put me in a bubble and keep me at home, and my father, he said, well, if Jerry's not going to be around very long, he wanted me to spend a lot more time with my older brothers that were quite involved with sports.
While so many cystic fibrosis patients reject the idea of competitive sports and hardcore conditioning, for Jerry, this became his passion. He went on to pole vault at the University of Connecticut and is now even a coach himself.
That's aggressive, that's good.
I think he just loves to see kids learn from him something that he is so emotional about and so passionate about. I know how much Jerry has to prep himself at the beginning of the day to know how many pills he has to take and the nebulizers he uses. Having CF has ever deterred Jerry from anything he wanted to do.
Jerry Cahill likes to live by his father's mantra, you cannot fail. After all, at 56 years old, Jerry has survived far past the average life expectancy of 37 for those with CF. It's perhaps this mantra that led Jerry to working with a former All-Pro quarterback.
Just from being a dad of a cystic fibrosis child, the original goal, and it always has been the goal, was to raise enough money to cure the disease. Jerry wanted to volunteer, and he all of a sudden became my eyes and ears within the community of cystic fibrosis itself. He was knocking on doors, pounding the pavement, meeting people, communicating with all the things that are going on in the world of cystic fibrosis.
Jerry is a visionary, and he had this vision. He talked about having a race in Central Park 5 years ago.
Guys, run to breathe 10K. This is it.
And, you know, it's baby steps with any program. And 2 years ago was our inaugural year, and it was a huge success.
Yeah, Jerry.
It was him being out there with his oxygen tank that showed people, you know, you cannot fail, and you can do this too.
I want to say a very, very special thank you to somebody who has brought running into our foundation, and that is Jerry Cahill, that you heard. He's out here running. If that isn't courage, I don't know what is.
I would tell you that he's the hero in our CF community. There has to be somebody living, breathing, and to be an example of the way it should be.
But despite this newfound sense of euphoria among the CF community, Jerry's own life was spiraling downwards. His health was deteriorating at a rapid pace.
And I was getting sick then, I knew. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without really getting out of breath.
He was suffering from a lot of lost or drowned lung. As the patient gets sicker, they all of a sudden get some episodes where they get admitted to the hospital, and all of a sudden they're having real trouble breathing. It becomes apparent to them that they're not going to get along very much longer, and one bad episode could make them from transplant candidates to too sick for transplant.
On April 17th, 2012, Jerry Cahill entered the most challenging race of his life yet, a double lung transplant, forever changing every breath he'd take.
The next 24 hours, it's kind of all you could think about. I know I didn't sleep that night, and I know a lot of people didn't either.
It's a very, very long 5 to 8 hours. You know, the reality is, please, please come out of that operation.
Just having the transplant doesn't mean that, you know, I'm out of the woods, but I can breathe. Well, I think about the donor every day, you know. I mean, somebody had to die so that I could live. You know, because of that, I'm here today. So that's why every day is a gift, and yeah, I think about the donor every day. Dr. Sonnet sent him an email, and he said, hey, I'm running in Boomer's CF Run to Breathe. I want to know if you're going to be running it. And I saw this email, and I had to take a second look at it. I thought, I mean, I know I'm crazy. I said, is this guy nuts? Like, I just had a transplant.
He jumped on the opportunity, and I think I had trouble keeping up with him.
And about halfway through the race, I saw Jerry in front of me. And I ran up next to him, and he was sitting there running. He was struggling a little bit, but I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm looking at him, and he's smiling. That smile told me that his life is good, man, because this is what he loves more than anything.
I love it.
We knew going into the race this year that it was definitely going to be a celebration of life. He also beat his time from the year before. He has always told me that anything is possible.
Jerry Cahill's undetermined SOB. And for those of us who are around him, we're better people for him being in our life.
Average life expectancy right now with cystic fibrosis is 37, and I'm 56.
Next on Courage.
Thank you. That's a warm welcome for Jerry Cahill. Come on up, Jerry.
Okay, thank you. It's great to be here. I wanted to thank CFRI for having me and Genentech for their sponsorship. I had a double lung transplant 15 months ago, and I'm loving life today, and I'm doing a lot of great things. Before transplant, my lung function was at 19%. I was at the doctor's the other day, and it's 104%, so it's good stuff. No, I still have cystic fibrosis, but my life is not about CF. It's about me being strong-minded, strong-willed, and just really pushing through. And, you know, I kind of live my life relentlessly, and I think that's why I'm here today with cystic fibrosis and post-transplant, 15 months. Together, you know, we cannot fail, and we're all heroes of our own story. Everybody has a different story, but the main focus is that, you know, you really got to push through. One thing I wanted to share with you is that, before I start going on, is prior to transplant, I was really obsessed with my breathing because it kept getting worse and worse. So every day, I would try to blow up a balloon. Besides the fact that it's probably very good therapy, besides using my flutter and all my other airway clearance devices, and I couldn't really blow up a balloon because my lung function was so low. So now I have to use a spirometer post-transplant, but I still like to blow up the balloons because now I can blow up a balloon. So So that's a good thing. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Connecticut for a while. I have 4 brothers, I have 1 sister. I went to the University of Connecticut where I pole vaulted. I was in the apparel industry for 20-something years. I was a vice president there. I used to travel a lot with my job. It was like traveling with a circus. I would travel with IVs, and I was traveling sometimes 3 or 4 cities within a week. My doctor really wanted to tie a leash on me, but it was kind of what I did and really what kind of pushed me through, and it was just kind of that positive attitude that I think has gotten me where I am today. I'm very involved in coaching, as you saw in the video. Currently, I'm on disability, so that's obviously a big reinvention to go on disability after, having a great career, and then it's time to go on disability. I had to go on disability because of the progression of cystic fibrosis. It was getting a lot worse. But again, it's all about reinventing yourself. So I had to reinvent myself going on disability. I could have sat home and stared at the walls, but so I figured I'll get involved, and I started doing some volunteer work at the Boomer Esiason Foundation, where I work on a lot of educational programs and scholarship programs for the CF community. And what's great about it is Boomer really believes in giving back to people with cystic fibrosis in the here and now as we await a cure. Anybody with cystic fibrosis, you realize, we're looking for the next best fix, the new drugs and whatnot, but it's a financial hardship for people with cystic fibrosis. So Boomer is very supportive in giving back. So we give out scholarships, we give out transplant grants, so we really believe, and a lot of the programs I do, they're all educational programs for the CF community. So the world of CF, kind of then and now, it's kind of quite different. We're living in a great age today. When I grew up with cystic fibrosis, it was like growing up in the dark ages. I was diagnosed at 10 or 11. I think I'm getting senile, but whatever it was, the life expectancy back then was 16 years old. The doctors told my parents, well, if you're lucky if your son makes it till his 16th birthday, just keep Jerry comfortable at home. And as I said in the video, CF was like a death sentence back then. And, there was a lot of doom and gloom. And, it was like being in a battlefield 24/7. Back then, though, when I grew up, I used to sleep in a mist tent. I used to use a DeVilbiss, I remember these things vividly, nebulizer, which wasn't electronic, and there was a little bulb at the end, but you would push the bulb, and you'd get a little flicker of mist, and we used to breathe in mucomist. All the enzymes were powdered. You'd hold your nose and kind of get them down, and at the time, I was 10 or 11, but it was kind of really a strange world back then. I can remember, and it was all postural drainage. There was no vest, there was no percussors, there was no flutters and whatnot. So growing up, just to tell you kind of some of my little stories, my parents did my postural drainage, but I have 3 older brothers, and at the time, my parents tried to make me very independent, which was actually a very good thing. But at times my mom was cooking and my father was working, so my brothers got a kick out of this whole postural drainage thing. So they said, oh, we'll try it. So we start with my oldest brother, Eddie, and he'd start doing it. And if you don't do it correctly, it's like you're getting smacked. And I'd start screaming, and my brother Kevin would then jump in and throw my brother Eddie off and say, I'll do it, I'll show you how to do it. And then he'd start smacking me. And my brother Dennis, who's right above me, he's the fighter. And he'd throw them all off and say, I'll show you how to do it. So They ended up turning into a major fist fight when they were trying to do my postural drainage. And the funny thing about it, this would all start, we'd be playing this game, it was a hockey game, and you had these little sticks and you'd move the little men, and the game got destroyed because my brothers were fighting and I was sitting there on the sidelines like, I'm trying to clear my lungs and these guys are all fighting. So that was typical of growing up in my household. And another thing was with the mist tent, which obviously they don't use anymore because I think it breeds bacteria. You know, I grew up, my family didn't have a lot of money. There was 4 of us that slept in one bedroom. It was a big bedroom, but there was 2 sets of bunk beds. Now, on every Saturday morning and Sunday morning, we'd all get up, and the bunk beds were the best because you'd rip off all the sheets and the blankets, and you'd make tents, you know, and forts. So we'd have all of this going on in the room, and then when I finally got the mist tent, that was the best part, because that was like the home base of the fort. And my brothers used to love to come in there, but during the night when I was in there, I would wake up wet. It was just soaking wet. And my parents would come in later then freaking out because this was a very expensive piece of apparatus, and here we are playing with it as if it's a toy. So anyway, this is what kind of went on. The other thing, though, which was probably the most positive thing, which is really what the book is about, the boy who could not fail, it's really about me growing up with my brothers and playing sports. So when I was growing up and my mom was like, wanted to put me in a bubble, and my dad was like, well, if Jerry's not going to be around, he's got to spend time with his brothers and this whole kind of thing. So my dad decided, my 3 older brothers were very good athletes. So he decided, well, Jerry's going to be with his brothers, and Jerry's going to play sports. Now, I didn't really like sports because I was very intimidated because of my brothers, because they were very good in sports. So my father, instead of letting me play like on the little pee-wee league, because he wanted me to be with my brothers, he put me on like the minors and majors with my brothers. So I was terrified, but my father thought this was the greatest, and he knew all the coaches. So we started off with baseball. And this is what the little book is about, and you're all welcome to the book. They're free out there for everybody to take a copy, is that we would play baseball. Now, I played right field. That was my position, which back then, I don't even know if it's the same because I've gotten mental blocks with some of these sports. It was like being left out because who plays right field? And I had the cleanest uniform, and I would sit out in right field just praying that nobody would hit the ball to me. And most of the time I got through, but a couple of times I'd put my glove up in the air and the ball went over my head, and I thought I was pretty fast. I'd run, get the ball, and throw it. And that was me playing baseball. And all I could hope for was a walk when I would get up at bat. So, and I would stand pretty much 4 feet away from home plate. Now this was baseball, it wasn't softball. And I sit the furthest away on the bench. And my father would come to the games, and half the time I wasn't even watching the game. I would be like peeking at my father because my father had this signal that he would give to the coach. Oh, I put Jerry in now. So then I was in, played right field. I got up at bat, 4 feet away. They tell me, oh, there's a wild pitcher in the game today. So I stood like 6 feet away, and all I would hope for was a walk, and I was really small, and I would squat down even further. I got hit in the eye with the baseball, was rushed to the emergency room. My grandfather, my father, my mother show up. All I could think of is I told my father, I'm not playing this game ever again. I'm not playing this game. So he said, okay, let's finish out the season. So I finished out the season, and I said, but I'm not playing, so just leave me on the bench. That finished baseball. So then, and that went through like kind of the spring, summer. My brother played on a league called Newt Rockney football. And he was a halfback, and he would score 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. Well, he had a trophy that was this big. My father, Jerry, you're going to play football. I want you to be with your brothers. Now, again, I should have been on this little league with little kids running around and they don't know where they're going. And I was on this team with my brother. So my father decides, tells the coach, well, Dennis is a halfback. Jerry's going to be a halfback. So I'm doing this. Now, unbeknownst to me, my father had this pact with the coach, but we don't want people hitting Jerry. Just push him over during practices. So I thought, well, this isn't too bad. They're just, if I get the ball and, they're pushing me. And I knew the plays inside out. I knew what hole to run through. I knew the plays because I was really kind of crazy about different things like that. And again, though, I would sit at far end of the bench. And we had this German Shepherd, Heidi. My father would come watch the game, stand up on the hill, and again, I would watch my father, because my brother was just scoring touchdowns, and I'd think, Dennis, please stop with the touchdowns, stop, because I knew if we were winning by a lot, then they'd put me in. So, and my father would give this signal again, and I thought, oh no. And the coach would call me, but I'd be so far down the edge of the bench, I would make believe I didn't hear him. Jerry, come on. So I went in. So this is the first time that I really played in a game. I go in, and the first play is to me. So I get, I'm thinking, okay, I'm all set. I run through the hole, and I got crushed. Okay, I didn't get hurt, but I was like crushed. And I thought, you know what, there's no way that I'm going to do this again. So the next play, again, is to me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, here we go again. So I get the ball, and instead of running through the hole, I don't know what I was supposed to do, because again, I have mental blocks now about all of that. I start running around the outside. Now these people are chasing me, so instead of trying to go toward the goal, I start running the other way. And I ran out of bounds so nobody could hit me, but I ran probably 20 yards the other way. So I do that, and again, all I kept doing is looking up my father. He's up on the hill laughing. He thinks this is fun and whatnot. And so after this game, I say, I'm not playing this game anymore. He goes, oh, well, you'll finish out the season. I then go to basketball. Now, my father wasn't a big basketball fan, but he came to the games. And basketball was kind of a sane sport. Nobody really gets hit. So I played basketball. And again, you have to remember, throughout this whole process, and unbeknownst to me and really my parents, it was the best thing for me and CF, because back then they said, oh, keep people comfortable, whatever. So I started playing basketball, running up and down the court, and I thought I was pretty good. And at that point, I didn't really think about CF. I thought I was an athlete. So I go to high school, and I try out for the basketball team. And you have to show up the next day. You look at the roster to see if you're on the list. And I show up, and I'm looking at the list, and I'm like, where's my name? It's not there. So I was cut. So now in high school, if you're familiar, a lot of people that don't make teams, they gravitate to cross country, because in cross country, nobody's cut. Everybody just goes and shows up, and they say, all right, today's 4 miles, go run. So I joined cross country because I thought, well, I'm an athlete and whatnot. And again, now in cross country, there's usually like 3 groups. The first group of like really good runners. They're like kind of, I call them the elite runners. They go out and they have to run a 4 mile, and they're done in like 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. The second group is that kind of wannabe, but they're not at that level. Then here I was with the third group. This group was like the geeky group, like geeks and kids that they weren't athletic, but they were already waiting to go to college. They have well on their resume that they played sports. So I'd go out with this group, and I'd be coughing and choking and spitting up, and they'd be like, what's the matter with you? I'd say, oh, I just have like asthma or bronchitis. And it was amazing, like kids, oh, okay, and no big deal. But again, it was the greatest thing for me because I'm clearing out my lungs, right? And we would then be talking about the homework assignments. Then we'd get halfway out. We'd maybe get out a mile. We're supposed to do 4 miles. And all the other groups had turned around. They said, oh, we better turn around and go back home. So we would do that. So it really was kind of an interesting time, but it was a great thing for me personally with cystic fibrosis. I then ended up gravitating toward pole vaulting, which I had a great time with, and I ended up jumping over 16 feet. But again, the ideal thing about pole vaulting was that I was doing a lot of weightlifting, gymnastics. We were doing trampoline, and a lot of people know that trampoline, the bouncing, it moves the secretions. So these were all things that I was doing. So really, CF was never a big issue. I mean, mine was more respiratory, but I never really had that big of an issue with being congested, and had never been in the hospital, I think because of the exercise, until I graduated college, and I was working after about 6 months or so. And how that happened was when I stopped, when I graduated, I started working, I became that Saturday athlete. I was so obsessed with my career that I just kept working, and I got to the point where I got really sick, and the doctor said, Jerry, it's time to get a clean out. You get a tune-up. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they said, oh, well, we go in the hospital, you get some medications, and you come out and you feel great. So it sounded like a wonderful thing. So I was so sick and the pills weren't working. So I said, okay, I'll go in the hospital and, I'll get a tune-up. So I went in the hospital, and let me tell you, it was like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Now, it was the strangest situation, and I was like, whoa. That was my first reality with cystic fibrosis. First of all, back then, they put us in the rooms together, and people were doing postural drainage and coughing, and the person next to me, the same thing. And there was tons of CF people. But the first night I was there, like the next morning, we had people, parents that would come into my room, and they'd peek at me, and they'd walk out. And this went on about like 7 or 8 times, and some people would come in and peek, and they'd wave. So when the doctor came in that morning, I said, I think there's something wrong, or people are lost, or maybe you don't have me in the right spot. He says, well, what's the matter? I said, there's all these people that are coming in and like looking at me, and some are waving, and they're looking, and they're saying hi, and they're leaving. He goes, oh, Jerry, that's not a big deal. He goes, those are parents. And he goes, I said, yeah. He goes, well, they're parents of, children with CF, and they've never seen anybody as old as you. And I was like, whoa. I was like, well, I'm not old. He goes, well, you're not old, but. So now the interesting thing is then I said, this is crazy. So I said to the doctor, look, and I was 21 at the time, or 22, so I was kind of like a little bit of a schemer. I said, listen, I can't stay here. I have to go home. He goes, well, you can't go home. You have to stay a minimum of 14 days. I said, no, you don't understand. I can't stay here. This is not good for my mental health. And he's like, well, I said, I have to get out of here. So he says, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you a pass. I said, he goes, yeah, you can get a pass and you can go out. Now, the hospital I went to was in downtown Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights at the time. So I said, oh, okay. So I would go out and I'd get lunch and take a walk, and I felt a little better. But it's like the kind of thing where you give an inch, you take a yard. Then I told the doctor, I said, listen, I have to go to work. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, they don't know I'm here. Because I was in sales, and they thought I was out on sales calls and whatnot. I said, I have to go to work. He says, well, I said, look, I know the system here now. I only have to be here for my medications. They're at certain times. And I said, it's just a quick little train ride. I can get there and come back. So he agreed to let me do this, which was the worst thing he could have done. I had my suits moved into the hospital, my suits and my ties, everything. And I started going to work, and I'd come back. And at one point, somebody thought I was a doctor. I said, I'm not a doctor. So I was going to work, and I would go to work. And then this girl came in who I got friendly with, and I said, oh, Ronnie, you can get a pass. You get a pass, you go out. So she's like, a pass? I said, yeah, you get a pass, you can go out. And so she told the doctor, and he gave her a pass. Now, so we would go out, and we were very friendly with the nurses, everybody. We'd go out to lunch and stuff. Now, there's probably doctors in here that don't want to hear some of this, but this is what we did. And we then, one night, we were of age, so one night we said, oh, we're going to go to the movies. And they said, okay, you got to be back here by 11. I said, oh, the movie's over at 10. And it really wasn't far. It was like, a 3-minute walk from the hospital in Brooklyn Heights. Went to the movies. We're on our way back. Now, we weren't big parties, but there was a bar, and it was a Friday night. And she's like, oh, I would really love to have a glass of wine. I said, yeah, I'd like to have a beer, but we better go back. She says, oh, what the heck. So we're on medications. We go in and have she has a glass of wine, I have a beer. And then we say, okay, we're going back to the hospital. We went back. We didn't realize a loss of time. The front door is locked. So we have to go through the emergency room, and as we're going through the emergency room, they're screaming more at her than me. They're looking for you, and they called your parents, and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, oh, let's get up to the floor. The next day, I had to go to work. So I made sure I got up extra early. She calls me, says, Jerry, there's a guard outside my door. So they wouldn't let her leave, so that ended the passes, okay? Just as other little quick story, what I had learned then is that, as long as I was there for the medications, and I was very involved in sports, and so my friend said to me, Jerry, it's too bad you're going to miss this track meet. We have a track meet at Princeton. And I was like, yeah, I know, I'm stuck in here. But I said, well, let me see what I can do. So they ended up coming, because I told the doctor, this was on a Saturday, he says, as long as you're here, you can go out. And I said, well, I'm going to go home, my family, I miss my family, and they're driving here. Okay, so I ended up going, my friends picked me up, I went to a track meet at Princeton, and again, this is the whole, go back to the same thing, how important it is, the exercise. I was coughing up, because I was on IVs at the time, and it was like somebody broke the dam, and everything was coming up, but I pole vaulted at this meet, and I ended up taking second place. So I can't believe it. So it's kind of something that's very meaningful to me in spite of all the CF. When I speak a lot, I bring my medal. So this is my medal that I won while I was in the hospital. So it's kind of, the point of a lot of this is that really, I have CF, I had a transplant, but you've just got to keep really pushing through. It's really important. It's like being relentless, okay? Like I said, I ran that, it's all with my doctor's approval too. I ran that 10K after my transplant. But now, those are the old days. Now growing up with CF, oh my God, those with CF today, young children or parents, it's a different world. The technology, the drugs that are out there, the pipeline of drugs that, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and what they're working on is just truly amazing. There really is a lot more hope. When I was growing up, everybody that I grew up with CF, I would say 98% of them, they're gone. They're not around. But today, with all of the technology and the drugs out there, it's just it's a beautiful place to be right now with CF. People today, they're going away to college more. I went away, but today it's like almost a given. People are very involved in relationships. They're getting married, they're having families. They're saving money and they're buying houses. If I knew then what I knew now that I'd be around, I would be probably a totally different person. Back then it was like, what's the point? You're not going to be around, so spend your money and have fun. And we get married. That was really, again, the mindset of a lot of people back in those days. A good percentage of them. But today, people with CF, there's a lot more hope. And people are living their dreams. But with that said, there's still a lot of challenges that we all should be aware of. I do some volunteer work at the foundation, and there's a lot of people out there that they're suffering tremendously with CF, and it's devastating. But the main thing is their quality. Their quality of life is not good. But people will ask me like, how are you still here at 57? And I just, sometimes I wonder, I don't know, what am I doing here? But, I look back, and the main thing is that I've been very relentless and very diligent in being compliant. And being compliant, to me, and what's worked for me, is not just breathing in your medications and taking your pills. Being compliant is a total program. You can pour water on a stone, it's not going to penetrate. But, and you can breathe in all the medication, but if you're not opening up your lungs and expand them, that medication's not going to get in there. So to me, it's a total program where you've got to be compliant, do all your medications, but it's nutrition. And I'm talking, nutrition, not just stick, junk in your body. It's about exercise. It's about socializing. You have to have a life. And it's also about, teaming up with your team of doctors. I have the best relationship with my doctors. I speak to them, I call them. This is forgetting post-transplant, pre-transplant. My doctor in New York, I wouldn't call them and say, oh, I have a sniffle. But if there was ever an issue, like, it was always taken care of. Getting involved in drug studies. I was involved with some drug studies that really prolonged my life before transplant. It got to the point that I was very resistant to the drugs, but that's what I mean by a total program. You just can't do one and not the other, because you have an imbalance. And really, it's like an Olympic athlete. That's how I like to look at it, because I thought I was an athlete, is that, a sprinter that's in the Olympics, they don't just go out and run sprints. They do distance running, they do plyometrics, they do weightlifting, they do mental work on their mental state. So it's a total program there. And that's what's really important for cystic fibrosis, and it has been always important for me, and this is why it's kept me around. And one thing I'd like to share with you, which is something kind of, I believe, and I think a lot of people with cystic fibrosis, most people are, they're real fighters. And this is the fighter's creed. Some of you may have heard it before, but it's life is a fight, round by round. I have the choice to fight or quit. I am responsible for the direction of my dreams. I will work and I will keep going no matter what. From this day forward, I choose to fight. And that's really something that's important to me because that's what I do, and that's how I get through. And I know a lot of other people with cystic fibrosis are the same way. I mean, I went into this transplant thinking I was going for a root canal, and my family was freaking out. I had 5 dry runs, which means you go to the hospital and you wait, and then, okay, go home. But you have to be, relentless. And a lot of times it's tougher on the family, but you have to understand, those parents out there, that most people with CF, they're pretty resilient and pretty strong, and they'll do what they have to do to get through. The other thing is, we'll go back to you cannot fail. That you are the hero of your own story. So that was really kind of an important mantra for me growing up, that both my parents really instilled in me, because I was sick a lot as a child, and they would always try to be positive, and don't worry, Jerry, you can't fail, you're going to get through this and it'll be fine. And they always would tell me that, CF is not going to stop you from doing and achieving things, and that's important that you have to remember that. And they would also say, which a lot of times I write in the book now, look, this CF that you have, this disease, it's just a bump in the road. You'll get through it and you'll get on. And you know what? It became kind of so ingrained in my head that that's really what I do. I mean, I look back and I don't know how I ran that race 3 months post-transplant. It was a little insane now that I think about it. And I don't know how I traveled the way I did with CF, with my circus, and like hitting 3 cities in a week. But you know what? I did it, and I feel better that I did it. And I've just kept motivating myself to do it. And that's what You Cannot Fail is. It's a motivational launch pad to inspire people, but just to inspire yourself. And it starts with cystic fibrosis, but everybody has obstacles in their life, and You Cannot Fail, you are the hero of your own story, is really meant for anybody that's facing an obstacle in life, be it cystic fibrosis, another disease, cancer. It could be kids at school that having hard times and bullying or family problems. And my associate Natalie and I went out, and post-transplant, I guess just about a year, I had my gallbladder out. Because after transplant, it's like they just, take it out, take it out, take it out. So I had my gallbladder taken out, but we had some scheduled appointments down in West Virginia that Natalie had set up to talk to high school kids. So we go down there, and we're driving to the hotel. I'm like, Natalie, what am I going to talk to these kids about? I mean, I coach kids, but I'm going to talk to them about You Cannot Fail. It was amazing, the response that we got, and how much high school boys and girls really kind of enjoyed it. We had one girl that did a speech and won like second in the state, talking about how you cannot fail and inspiration. So it's really, it's a very powerful saying that you cannot fail, and it relates to everybody, and it's all about overcoming obstacles, whatever they may be. It's about being relentless, it's about believing, and that's really important. So that's where the books came from, really. It was kind of a great program that we're doing at the foundation, and Boomer has been very supportive, and we do scholarships and all of that there. But, especially for me post-transplant, this is something that, is very meaningful to me, that every day is a celebration for me, and I look forward to every day. I mean, today, tomorrow, next week, and next year. We have a website for You Cannot Fail, and it's a great website that anybody can go up there and post. We don't use your first, we can use your first name, or you can use your nickname, but we don't put pictures up there. So you can put a brick wall if that's a picture you like, or a picture of nature. But again, my goal right now is to just really, post-transplant is to enjoy life, celebrate, and to pass on whatever I have to pass on to other people, because it's really, for me, it's all about the journey. Life is a journey. It's about, sportsmanship, and it's about the friends you make along the way. Cystic fibrosis talks about, like, my dream. Well, my dream is to keep fighting and to inspiring, so I give people in the CF community hope, so they keep believing and dreaming. So, 57 is just kind of an average life expectancy for people with CF. And with a lot of the new drugs coming out, that is a very strong possibility. I mean, people are living longer. And I know together that, we cannot fail, and we will beat this disease. And really, that's all I wanted to tell you tonight. That's kind of a little bit about my story. Natalie from the foundation is quickly going to come up and talk about, for 2 minutes, the programs that we work on at the foundation. So you're just familiar with them. We have a lot of scholarships. I will tell you, that scholarships are competitive. We give out a lot of money, but they're very competitive. And it's kind of, again, a total program. It's not just about, well, I have a 3.8 average. It involves, if you're exercising or doing something in community service, an essay, a phone interview. But we have a lot of scholarships, and it's a great program and whatnot. So I'll let Natalie come on up and talk about that. And if we have time, we can answer a few questions. If not, it's been great.
Jerry's a pro, right? Give it up for him one more time. So I was fortunate enough to join the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Next month will be 9 years ago, and Jerry joined just a few weeks after me. I feel like I've been working with, like, Batman and Robin with Boomer and Jerry. They are, like, on a mission, and I am one lucky person to be exposed to all the wonderful people and the cause because of them. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about the foundation. We recently just celebrated our 20th year of being the Boomer Esiason Foundation. We were established in 1993. As you see on the screen here, the Sports Illustrated issue, that is in October of 1993, just a few months after Gunnar was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And for those of you who aren't aware, I think most people know, but Boomer was a quarterback in the NFL, so he was sort of chosen, so to speak, by fate to sort of run with this cause and become the face, along with Gunnar, of the cause, and really just to run with it and raise money to not only find a cure, but to help those in the here and now. So that, as you see there, is 20 years ago. We are celebrating three big things with Jerry. So Gunnar graduated from Boston College in May of this year. He's 22 years old. He's doing wonderful. And we recently just passed our $100 million mark, which is, we're really proud of it. Thank you. What we're so proud of is that we can truly say that over 90% of every dollar raised goes back to the cause. So that is, as you know, pretty amazing. So as Jerry mentioned, actually quickly, Jerry didn't mention that we are where we are today in the here and now with these educational programs like what you see, what we're doing today. And with the scholarships and transplant grants that I'm going to run through quickly because of Jerry. He just brought this new sense of reality and optimism to the foundation. And what I'm going to run through now, you can find on our website, and I'm sort of going through so we can stay on our time schedule here, but I'm going to go through quickly what Jerry has implemented in the foundation. So the Cystic Fibrosis podcasts are something that Jerry works on a lot. We get a lot of grants through pharmaceutical companies and talk to a bunch of lovely individuals who have cystic fibrosis who are thriving and living a wonderful life despite the fact that they have cystic fibrosis. Club Cystic Fibrosis, which we have someone here who was in our first book. I don't know where she is, but anyway, this is a great tool to share with those who have cystic fibrosis because it's everyone from caregivers to everyone from different ages who have the disease, and they share their stories, again, of how they're living and breathing and succeeding, much like Jerry and Gunnar are doing. And that website is actually currently under construction, but we're hoped to relaunch soon. And cystic fibrosis wind sprints. These are similar to podcasts, but they're just a little bit quicker, and they talk about everything from exercise regimen to eating healthy and obviously being compliant. And those are actually like little fun short videos that keeps everybody's attention span on the internet. Cystic fibrosis scholarships. We have given over, let's see, last year was over $750,000 in scholarships, and we're so proud of that. That's, again, another program that Jerry has really taken to another level, and it really, you know, it's great because however many years ago we didn't think that we would be even thinking about giving scholarships, and now, as Jerry mentioned earlier, it's so competitive, and it's really, really grown over the years. The lung transplant grant program, as all of you probably know, we can't directly support the transplant itself, but we can help with, you know, relocation costs or other, you know, costs that might be associated with having the transplant. So again, you know, because of the advances in the world of cystic fibrosis and living longer lives, these are becoming pretty competitive as well. Team Boomer. Team Boomer, Jerry founded back in 2006, and Team Boomer is a competitive athletic club, which is great for not only those with cystic fibrosis because it promotes exercise and living a healthy lifestyle, but also that you and I, people like you and I who do not have cystic fibrosis out there, we can get out there and be healthy and run and raise money for the cause. All the money that's funded through Team Boomer goes to an exercise scholarship. It's called Exercise for Life. And once again, very competitive over the years. So we have information out there on Team Boomer and of course all of these as well. Run to Breathe. You know, this is so awesome because as you saw in the video and then you heard from Jerry, we actually just celebrated the 3rd annual Run to Breathe on July 20th. And this one was a speedster. We believe it or not, we had to knock it. It was so hot out. We had to knock it down from a 10K to a 4-mile fun run. But he was out there for the 3rd year in a row. And I mean, just what a moment of just true glory and admiration and motivation to everybody out there, to see Jerry out there and to see Boomer and Gunnar involved. And it's become just a great, great cause. You're talking about like 7,000 people in Central Park, and we have people traveling from all over the world, literally, to do this race. So that's a great, great way to get involved with the community. And then you are the hero of your own story. You cannot fail. Jerry touched on that a lot. It's become sort of the mantra in our cystic fibrosis world and at the Boomer Esiason Foundation. And of course, his book, Jerry the Boy Who Could Not Fail. And he has 2 more books coming out, by the way, so be on the lookout. And the website, again, if I could just reiterate, anybody who has a story about their own lives, whether it's struggling with weight or bullying or trouble at home, the You Cannot Fail site is a great way to share your story, and it really motivates other people who have cystic fibrosis or not. So I really encourage everybody to go visit that site. And lastly but not least, this is Jerry in the finish line from last year's Run to Breathe. Again, just emulating everything that he's about, everything that he has taught us at the foundation and that Boomer believes in. Again, living, breathing, succeeding, giving back to the here and now. So I encourage you all to, number one, feel good about being here today because we're so honored to be here, especially being among Jerry. And number two, to check out the things that we have because we do have the resources to help a lot of you in the room. So thank you for having us. And if you have any questions, we are running tight on time. So if you probably saw our table out there, you're welcome to come talk to Jerry and myself at any time. Thank you so much.